Hello. So for this video, I thought I'd go through a Google Slides presentation, right? So it'd be great to have this app, right? Now I'm coming from an iPad, but similar features from a smartphone or like an Android or iPhone, right? So this is a great way to show not only staff, but students, right, who are working from the multiple devices that there are ways we can still have an educational experience together, even if you are limited to a smartphone or an iPad. Right. So for an example, I thought I'd go through one of these lessons that I've shown to students, right? So um, a little way to make them a little more interactive, at least to an extent of having students respond, right? So we go through this slideshow. Um, right? With this idea of what is ecology, right? And so usually before we would begin, I would also have students break down this word ecosystem, right? So I would split the word in two. We have eco on one side, system on the other, and try to have students give ideas of what each of these words mean, and eventually we would bring them together. Right now, the same thing with what is ecology? It's the study of interactive organisms and their environment. And then I would have them go through what is an organism, right? Give me examples of organisms and then different types of environments. Right? And then we'd actually go into a definition of the word ecosystem, right? And then some visual representations for them. And then ask for any clarifying questions or anything they have concerns. Now, this is where it becomes a little bit more interactive, right? So I would have one part at a time. So I would ask students to read this slightly, slight definition of this word biotic, right? So I ask students, what is the key part? Like in this sentence, in this statement, what do we think is a key idea to help us understand this word, right? And so they would focus on living parts or ecosystem, right? And biotic, the word itself, biotic, right? Break that apart, right? The root word bio is living things, right? So then I would ask them to give me examples, like what are living things, right? So maybe we'd say humans, cats, dogs, or anything like that. And then, I always ask them, is it only animals, right? So it's also trees, plants, flowers, and insects, animals. And then I would have visual representations and examples for them, right? So it's good to have that animation, right? So that not every part just comes onto the screen. It takes some tapping to get into, right? So that could be done in the actual setup, right? So if we come out of here, right? So from an iPad, right, you have your screen, right? So what you can do is you could always highlight all the words, right? So you would highlight it, right? Double tapping. I know it's a little more frustrating, right? From an iPad, but you would select all of the words, right? And then the plus button up here, right? Sometimes it actually allows you to have animations, right? Now, from an iPad, you're a little bit more limited, but definitely you can set this up in a laptop, right? And then you could have all these parts, all ready to go for you, right? So if the iPad is not working for the animation, we can always definitely do it from the laptop first. And then when you present it, right, you present on this device, and then that's where it comes. Then we would go into this next one, abiotic, right? What's the key word? They would look at non-living, right? So anything that does not have life. And then we think and discuss about it, and then they see it's water, rock, soil, that sort of thing. And then we get visual representation of abiotic factors. Right, so then we go through this lesson. a little bit more of this whole idea of parts of living organisms, right? And then for this, I like the animation again for recaps, right? So a little piece at a time. So the first level was organism, right? I would ask them, what was the first level again? Smallest, right? It's the individual animal itself. And then the next part, right? So we would go one at a time. And again, just breaking down the information and chunking it so they get a visual representation of this idea, right? Of an ecosystem just being a large area with multiple living things, right? And then more vocabulary, biotic, abiotic. Right? And then we could also transition into an actual example of a certain type of ecosystem that is found on Earth, right? So giving examples for each level, right? So that sort of thing. And then I can have students, I give them an example, Sahara Desert, right, is a type of ecosystem. Can we break this down? What are some of the organisms, right, and the population? And we'll go through this, and then I would eventually give them the ideas if we struggle to come up with some of the ideas. Right? And this is using Google Slides.